Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. Just going to give everyone just a couple of minutes to get in. We had quite a number of signups today, so I'm just giving everyone a chance to join and get started. Feel free to say hello and where you're logging in from in the chat. Uh, I always like seeing where people log in from. I'm coming to you from Australia. Uh, it is very early in the morning, but I'm hello looking at yes, thank you, Dave. Hello from Narnia. Um, Seattle, lovely, welcome. Uh, Los Angeles, great. Uh, we usually have a great international presence, so yeah, really happy to see so many people. We had about I think we had 200 and something people sign up. So I want to give everyone just a couple of minutes to join. I'm really excited about today. Today is something that we've been working on for just over a year, and I we'll get into a lot of the details, and we'll talk about what we're announcing and why. But I just want to say that I'm just really excited about today. It is something that we've been really focusing on for quite a while, and yeah, I'm excited to show you what we have in store. So before we get going, I should say, if you don't know who I am, I'm Patrick Stafford. I'm the CEO and co-founder of UX Content Collective, and I host a podcast called Writers of Silicon Valley. So if you are interested in interviews with UX writers and content designers, I would definitely recommend checking that out. Also, I just realized that only people could only message the host and the panelists. So I've just changed that. Everyone is now allowed to chat with each other. So if you say hello and where you're logging in from, everyone should be able to see it now. So sorry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna get into it. Now I should let everyone know we are recording this. So if you just letting everyone know we are recording this and we are going to post it publicly fairly soon. So just letting you know. And as I mentioned before, I'm very excited about today. This is basically the key thing that I've been focusing on for the past year. Um, I've lost more than a little bit of sleep about it in a good way, and have been working pretty hard on it. So yeah, I'm really excited to show you what what we've been working on. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the industry and what's going on and maybe what we're all feeling and why we're announcing this course now in particular. So, much like Galadriel in The Lord of the Rings, I think we all know that the world has changed very recently in content design and UX writing. I sense that everyone here feels it, and not just because of the fact that there have been layoffs or that there has been, a change in technology, but there's been quite a bit of change. And in particular, I think people are very disoriented by the pace of this change. So it's very confusing for a lot of people. It's very hard to keep up with everything that's going on. I'm particularly thinking about new technology, but also just everything that's happening in the industry. It has matured, and so there's more stuff happening. There are more stakeholders and more platforms and less clarity about how to go about our our business of content. And as a result, we feel like there's less certainty about the function of content and our place within it. I hear from a lot of people who say, I feel like I'm getting pushed out because so much of the focus has shifted to engineering in the past couple of years. And so people feel as though they they're losing their place. And That's a very disorienting shift, and it's certainly something that can make you feel as though you don't you make you feel as though content is perhaps not the space for you, or perhaps everything's just going too fast and you can't keep up. So, why are we feeling this way? We're feeling this way, but why? So, I think we have to think back, the past few years have been pretty hectic. Layoffs began in 2022. Now, I don't think a lot of people remember, and it kind of gets tied up in everything, but layoffs began before ChatGPT became public. So a lot of people tend to lump in the layoffs with the rise of AI. They were actually two separate things. And even though the market has largely recovered, I can reveal actually one finding from our salary survey that we did recently, which is that the vast majority of content designers who were laid off have been rehired. So that's something I can reveal early. So it is a very good sign. But the sad thing is that there is a hangover. And so people feel as though the industry is still in that space it was a few years ago, which is a perfectly reasonable feeling to have. Of course, I've already mentioned, automation and AI. Tools are changing faster than we can keep up with. It's very disorienting. At the same time, our old problems still remain. So we're feeling left out of the decision-making process. We feel like we lack influence. So these problems have existed for a while. Now they have some urgency to them because of all this change happening. And the gap between content as a craft and content as infrastructure is widening. So content is now largely seen, or is increasingly seen, as an engineering space because of the rise of, ChatGPT and language models and so on. On top of all this, there's this move for designers to seem like they can do everything, this move to generalist design, and everyone needs to feel as though they have, competence in all these different areas. So it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for content to feel, and there's a significant amount of change going on. I should say, by the way, if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop in the chat. I love an interactive session, so if you have opinions on this, feel free to drop them. So I wanted to include here some quotes we had from our salary survey because I feel like the opinions expressed in that survey really reflect the assessment we've made of the industry. So I just pulled a sample from people who answered the question, "How do you feel about the industry right now?" And, a lot of these quotes are along the same lines. People saying it's important to learn and use AI. That's pretty straightforward. Uh, One person said that they see a lot of upside potential for the industry, but they're worried that leaders who don't understand accuracy issues and so on will push people out in favor of seemingly easy to use technology at the expense of quality and user experience. So there's a real concern about the quality of content at scale. Lots of people saying, content design roles will be durable, but require more integrated skills beyond UX copy. Um, Obviously, proficiency with, tools like Figma and so on and AI will be expected. But also, this one quote stood out to me, which is to say, I feel like this discipline is getting a little stale and it's time for content design to stop waiting for a seat at the table and to step up as trailblazers in the industry when it comes to AI and advocating for content. Um, and the last one in the bottom right, that really stood out to me. So it's this one person saying, I haven't been in the industry very long. It's clear that things are shifting. And, when looking at job descriptions for UX writers and content designers, they were planning to focus on upskilling and UX research and localization, but it's becoming very apparent that AI is a priority, and the next 2 to 3 years will bring major changes. So it's not just people who are embedded in the industry for a long time who are sensing this shift, it's people who are entering it as well. They're seeing all the change happening. And last year, we published a piece on our blog called Content Design 3.0, and we summarized what we think is going to happen to content design in the next few years. And we essentially said that in principle, we see content design changing and content design roles changing, and there will be much more of a focus on less on individual screens and flows and more on content designers becoming the shepherd of content quality at scale. So thinking less about individual things and more about systems and processes and so on. And yesterday, or the day before, someone on a Slack group posted this next comment that I'm going to show you, and I think it correctly or succinctly encapsulates everything that we predicted would happen in that post. So this person says, I recently found out my role is shifting from being the sole UX writer focused on hands-on content creation to something a bit more operational. I'll be leaning more into a content ops style role where the focus is less on writing everything myself and more on building the systems, tools, and workflows that help content scale. This includes helping set up and manage AI-enabled platforms so teams can create content more independently, plus driving governance, automation, and standardization to make everything more consistent. And it's giving them major imposter syndrome because I've never had to do anything like this in their career, and they're afraid of the technical aspect of the job. And I feel like a lot of people feel this way. And I've talked to a lot of content designers who are working on very similar projects who feel as though they are really, really racing to keep up with the change that's happening. And the way I like to see it is that all of this change is sort of contrasted or put against the influence problems that content designers already have. So bear with me in this quite strained analogy that I'm going to make. But if content design is a boat, we are the HMS content design. We have been attached to the dock of product in a very almost, I wouldn't say flimsy way, but our influence has always been questioned, right? It's always been very difficult to stay attached, and that's okay in the 2010s when our discipline is growing and there's a lot of emphasis on UX and we're getting a lot of focus on design as a differentiator. But now, when we are facing the swirling vortex and hurricane of change, it's very easy for content design to become unmoored and shift away from product, the dock of product, I should say, where it is harder for us to have influence. So it's sort of two things happening at once. We have all of this AI and technological change, which is exacerbating the existing problems of influence we already had. And some of the other problems we're hearing from hiring managers related to that have to do with the fact that content design is not as integrated into the product process as much as they want. So we're hearing that content is not fully integrated in product strategy. It's integrated into content strategy, but not product strategy. There's a lack of structured content to fuel a lot of the technological change we're talking about. There's trouble in managing standards at scale. There are a lot of new entrants who want to become senior. So we had a lot of people enter the industry in the late 2010s, early 2020s. They want to become intermediate and senior individual contributors, but very not a lot of instruction on how to get there, especially now that the goalposts seem to be shifting. There's a lack of opportunity for individual contributors to lead design teams. There's not really a roadmap for that. And there's a general lack of technical knowledge. So that's what we're hearing from hiring managers. If you're hearing or feeling the same things, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So feel free to add that in the chat if that's you. So our question has been, how do we fix this? If we're in the middle of this change and we feel as though things are changing quickly and content design needs to keep up, how do we fix it? So with our curriculum process and the way we go about creating any sort of training is we don't just start by saying we're going to create something that we feel is good. We bring together people in the industry who we think are experts, who certainly have a large amount of experience and who can offer their thoughts on what is happening, and we can generally just try and check our bias, right? So we brought together a group of some pretty impressive people, some of whom are on the call here. So we had Tina O'Shea from Intuit, Sophie Tarrant from Figma, most previously Condé Nast, Sally Bagshaw, who heads up content design at Canva, Larry Swanson, who's at MetaFacts. He also hosts, I think, about a billion content design podcasts. Content Strategy Insights is his main one. I would definitely check, and one on AI as well. Sorry, Larry, I've forgotten the name of that podcast, but it's great. Um, we have Andrew Stein at TIAA, who's on the call. And I've labeled Gordon McRae there as Sophie Tarrant again. That's my bad. But Gordon McRae, who helped us actually launch the original Fundamentals of UX Writing course, and has extensive experience in learning platforms like General Assembly. Christopher Rux from Meta, and Shannon Leahy from Capital One. Shannon's also on the call. So we brought together these people and we basically asked them, do we agree? Do we agree on the problems that we're seeing in the industry? And we went through a process of asking them what they thought about the problems that we had identified, and we essentially came up with a set of principles or problems that we're trying to solve, right? So, like any good UX process, we want to define our problem statement. And we came up with these six basic principles. The first is that content designers need a deeper understanding of product infrastructure. There's just a lack of knowledge right now among content designers about how products are actually structured, not just from a design perspective, but from a technological perspective. And it's extremely important for that to happen because content and engineering are now connected more than ever. The second problem is that content designers need to connect their work to product strategy. And I don't just mean content strategy, I mean product strategy. And this is extraordinarily important because now that dynamic and structured content are integral to product success, or more products are built on dynamic and structured content, we now need to be connected to that overall product strategy. The third is that content designers need to strategically measure performance, not just on an individual flow level or screen level, but we need to have a much, much bigger connection to the focus and results of our content. The fourth is that content leaders need to start building teams with new and emerging skills to handle these problems. So we're entering a new world, which means new types of teams, new types of thinking, new types of hiring. Content designers need to start thinking beyond flows and start thinking about systems. So we really just need to think bigger. If there is a huge amount of content being produced, most of it not by us, not by content designers, there is more content being produced. We have a responsibility and an opportunity to make sure that content remains quality, high quality at scale. And so that means we need to think beyond what's in our immediate vicinity and start thinking about product as a whole. And then finally, we need to play leading roles in structured and dynamic content. So we really need to own this technology shift, and that's how we gain influence. This is a big moment for us because I think, there are a lot of talks and we've given many of those talks about how to gain influence. And a lot of the advice comes down to interpersonal relationships and making sure that, an emphasis on soft skills, really. And that is important and that is crucial, and we will continue to champion that. But also, we are at a moment where there is a huge shift to, I guess, hard skills would be the term if we're going to use soft skills. hard technological skills. Making sure we keep up with those hard skills is also how we gain influence. If we can speak the same language as everyone else in our organization, we are going to be able to, like everyone says, get a seat at that table, get in the room, make sure we have that influence. So, we have come up with a curriculum that we think addresses the needs of the moment. And not to understate it, but a few years ago when we created the fundamentals of UX writing curriculum, there was nothing like it on the market. There was absolutely nothing like it. And it allowed thousands of people, literally thousands of people, to take the course, get introduced to UX writing, and start a career if that was their choice. We think this next course is that for people who are at an intermediate stage of their career. So if fundamentals of UX writing takes you from uh, an entry level to a junior, this is going to take you from a junior and intermediate or a senior to that next level. So we have come up with a course called Advanced UX Content for Product. And we see this as the next step for UX writers and content designers. The outcome of the course is to strategically position content in a product ecosystem to connect content, design, and technology to create impact. So, if you are the content designer in this lovely illustration, we want you to be sitting at the middle of all these interconnected parts. We think that with content now such an integral part of product, not just in traditional systems and UI, but also dynamic content, we think this is where you should be sitting. So, what this course teaches you is a foundational understanding of product infrastructure. You will understand how content plays an integral role in product success. So, beyond content strategy, we understand content strategy very well. We're talking about beyond product content strategy. We're talking about product strategy, measuring content performance through product development, building diverse and high performing teams, leading content initiatives within complex product ecosystems. So, giving you the confidence to understand how products are built and being able to lead content initiatives within them. Uh, Drive consistency, efficiency, and scalability with a content systems thinking approach, and then understand and master structured and dynamic content. So that's the course, and I want to take you through how the course is going to do that. So if you think about those problem statements that I just mentioned earlier, those 6 problem statements, we have mapped out curriculum to each of those statements. So if our first problem is that content designers need a deeper understanding of product infrastructure, then we need to teach you product infrastructure. So our first unit covers technical foundations for content, and we talk about, what is the tech stack? What is the front end? What is the back end? What is hosting and deployment and content delivery? And what is version control? And in particular, this is all through a content lens. We're not going to teach you things that aren't relevant to your position. We're going to teach you how does content flow through the back end? How does content flow through APIs? All of that infrastructure that's relevant to you understanding how a product is actually built. So we're going to start with that foundation so you have much more confidence in dealing with all the different people in your organization. And then we move on to content for product. So we understand content strategy. Now we need to think about product strategy. So we need to start shifting the mindset from thinking about how content works in a flow to how content works within a product ecosystem. Tackling problems like how do you work in ambiguity? How do you, if you're working on a product, how do you start building together a content approach when you don't necessarily have everything in front of you? How do you start shaping product requirements? How do you collaborate across different functions to make sure content flows well in a product? How do you prioritize and plan? Essentially, how do you start working with product managers as a content leader, as an equal to them? This is addressing that problem. how do we strategically measure performance? We need to stop thinking about individual, usability testing flows or circumstances, and we need to start thinking about how do you strategically measure content at scale across everything you're doing, not just thinking about how do we measure this particular prototype, but strategically thinking about measurement at every single step of what you're doing. How do you show the impact of what you're doing? If we need to build teams with new and emerging skills, how do we do that? How do we move not just in from content leadership, but also into UX leadership? How do we construct these new types of teams? How do we manage cross-functional teams and stakeholder engagement? How do we think in systems? So how do we think across product ecosystems? So understanding systems thinking, building effective content systems. How do we create different tools and methods? How do we create different strategies for content systems? How do we think about content in design systems? So thinking about ecosystems rather than just what's in front of us and what we're working on now. And then finally, we need to have these leading roles in structured and dynamic content. If we own that technology shift, that's how we gain influence. So we'll be covering both structured content and then also content at scale and dynamic systems. Now, you'll notice there we haven't really mentioned how to work with a language model or how to work with, this particular type of, retrieval augmented generation and so on. We'll focus on that, but our belief here is that you are not going to succeed based on just understanding one model or one particular piece of technology. What we're talking about here is a mindset shift, really trying to push your thinking away from the individual screens and flows in front of you and into thinking about product as a whole. So how is this course going to work? So much like our other courses, it is self-paced with graded feedback at the end of each unit. So at the end of each of these units, you will complete some sort of work and then you will get some graded feedback. Now, what separates out this course from some of our other courses is that midway through the course, you will have the option, if you would like to meet with a coach and to go over the work that you've done in the course so far, and to also discuss, perhaps, if you would like, what's going on in your organization and how you can adapt some of the work in the course to your own individual circumstance. So we're trying to combine here both a self-paced aspect and also a coaching aspect in the course. So you won't just be alone and doing this on your own. You will have the ability to meet with someone and to tell them what's going on and what you've been working on. As always, a challenging final project. We love our final projects. We think they're the best way for people to showcase their skills. And as always, we'll get lifetime access to the course. I don't want to reveal too much other than that right now because we are heading into the last stages of creating the course. And I do just want to bring up who is working on this course. So myself, I'm working on this course. Dave Connis, who's on the call, lead content designer at OutSystems. He is one of our authors. Kyra Lee, senior content designer and conversational AI at Scotiabank, most recently at User Testing, is also an author. She's on the call. We have Diodora Blanche. She's been at Airbnb and Coursera and the Meta Foundation. She also runs our AI content strategy workshop. And Connie Wu, who led content design at TikTok and was also at Meta and Google. She is an author as well. So I think we have a pretty great lineup of authors. In fact, I am just going to invite a couple of these folks just to say a couple of words about the course and how we've been going so far. So Dave, I'll throw to you first. Um, I don't know if you've prepared anything, but yeah,
Let me
I
pull
just
out
invite you
my
maybe just to share your
my
thoughts on
really
the ex
long notes. Um, I'm just kidding.
Okay, maybe just one page.
How about a paragraph? Just kidding.
Sure.
No, this is so in my perspective, the technical side of things, I think, is a superpower that can unlock a lot of collaboration, specifically collaboration between engineers and content designers. And I think there's a lot of times where if you show up to an engineer conversation and you're like, hey, can you go through just all of the product and sentence case everything? They're gonna look at you and be like, who is this person? And what are they doing here? So I think enabling conversations between like being able to understand the system behind the UI and enabling that sort of collaboration is going to set people like it's just going to have huge implications for just impact how you move forward and level you up as a content designer. And I don't see tons of content design resources talking about that. Obviously, I'm biased, so I'm really excited for this to appear and to be a part of a structured course that is helping people just see the whole perspective and not just sentence case or title case. I'm excited to change the LinkedIn posts a little bit.
I think that's well said. Thanks, Dave. Kyra, I know you're also on the call. I'm super excited to have you on board. You know, you have such an important and fantastic view about how we should be going about doing this. Do you want to say a little bit about the course and your thoughts so far?
Yeah, sure. So, just for a little bit of context, I recently left my job at user testing, but I was there for 3.5 years. And during my time there, obviously was able to do a lot of research, but also saw kind of how the industry evolved just because our user base are designers and writers and researchers who are using a research tool, right? So looking at people's perspective shifting around tools as well as how they use research beyond just the tactical aspect of research. So going into strategic research and making sure that like their team and people that they work with use research insights and make decision that has something to point back to. And so as the lead instructor for the UX content and research course as well, looking at what students are really struggling with when it comes to demonstrating their impact and using research in a strategic way. I actually reached out to Patrick and said like, hey, I have a bunch of ideas for improving this course or writing blog posts on that if you're interested. And Patrick just revealed to me that he's been secretly working on this project and asked me to be on board. And I was so happy to have been asked to join because I have so much that I can kind of share from my experience, kind of moving content design from being a tactical kind of discipline to a strategic partner in terms of product at my previous place. And so excited to kind of share that with you all via this course. But yeah, thanks for having me on board.
Oh, Kyra, it's a pleasure and a privilege to have you on board. I mean, Dave and I have seen what you've written, and it's fantastic stuff. So I'm super excited. Um, I also want to invite a couple of our advisory group members to say a couple of things about this process, and I'll throw to Shannon Leahy, who the queen of job posting on LinkedIn. Um, Shannon, you were a part of the couple of advisory group sessions, and they were incredibly useful in just not only confirming that we were on the right path, but also letting us know about what was happening in your perspective on the ground, and letting us shift our curriculum a little bit to maybe tighten it and focus it and make sure we're focusing on the things that really matter the most. Um, yeah, look, I just want to say first of all, thank you for being part of that process. Um, I'm just wondering, your thoughts on everything that we've outlined. Is it still true in your view? Are we still facing these problems? And yeah, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And I also big thank you back for reaching out with the opportunity. It was a very lovely, lovely email to get. It was quite a surprise. But what's really exciting for me about the development of this course and something that I'm really personally passionate about is demystifying and talking about all these things that I feel like a lot of us are like, you just kind of learn it on the job or you learn it by happenstance. And like, being able to take it out of that shroud of mystery, and being able to like break it down in really real world applicable ways. These are the kinds of conversations I have with my direct reports, whether they are content designers or product designers or researchers. A lot of these topics and things, even in my own career journey, going from a content design IC to now being a senior UX manager, like this is a lot of stuff I've had to learn. And now I'm like, oh gosh, now that I've had my light bulb moment, to be able to pay that forward for folks and like just, you know, take out the mystique of like your business acumen. It's like, no, really, this is what it means. This is how it can show up in your work. And here's how you can talk about that and balance that out and speak to that while also representing your design expertise in equal measure. I think the other thing that really stands out for me is kind of like part of this process and this conversation too, is that these kinds of skill sets and mindsets and potential tactics and things, while it's being framed in terms of like product or working with a product team, I think there's a lot of parallels, and it's like you can also kind of take from that and see where and how you could apply that moving in and out of different industries. Or if you're like, hey, right now I'm working in-house somewhere, maybe I want to go work for government services. I think like pulling on those threads, and like something else that I've come to appreciate through my career too is like, even having started a long time ago agency side, like there's trials and tribulations that like there were lessons I learned there that have come in handy now being in product and being in-house and vice versa. It's like, I wish past me could have known this thing that now I've learned. So I'm really excited for folks to be able to kind of take this stuff, get some additional information that can kind of build on the foundations they have, and then be able to kind of take it and make their own as well.
So yeah, thanks, Shannon. It's been, yeah, your advice was invaluable in the advisory group process. So thank you for being a part of this. And we also have Andrew on the call. Andrew, also want to thank you for being part of that process. You always come to these things with such a distinct and helpful point of view about what we should be focusing on. And you've been, in my view, such a champion for how content designers should be approaching this moment and viewing it as an opportunity and not just as something that is happening to us, but something that we should be actively shaping. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on, what we're doing, and yeah, your thoughts on being a part of the advisory group, and yeah, how you felt about that.
Yeah, well, at risk of making everybody roll their eyes with the mushy compliments, I do want to say it's really awesome to be part of this group and to get to work on something like this, because I think my career has become what it is because of all the wealth of knowledge sharing and the just the depth that a group like this brings. Um, I've been listening to Patrick long before I ever knew him, and so many people on this panel. It's the same way. Shannon was the one actually that, again, way back, encouraged me to put myself out there and gave me some advice because I DM'd her about doing some public speaking, and so anyway, just so much good has come from this, and it's I think an honor to be able to jump into that and also help others as well. I mean, I think the main thing I would say about this course that excites me is, we all have that like that perception of our role, or that complaint that almost is like a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes is, nobody takes me seriously, they bring me in too late, the seat at the table thing. And I think this, while I do see this course as being incredibly practical and something that you can take and implement and actually see manifest in your work, it also really is designed, I think, to elevate us to that place, like give us the actual tools to be able to walk into the room, to sit at that table and have influence, right? Not just be present, but really have influence. And that's something that, while we've often complained about, me included, right? This gives us the tools to take ownership of that. And some great advice I got from a former manager at Meta was, I was complaining about this very same thing. And she said, well, what are you doing about it? Are you setting up the meetings? Are you bringing people together? And if you don't have the tools to speak knowledgeably in that moment, then you're like, well, yeah, I could call them all together, but then what do I do? Because I don't know, right? And
Hmm.
this course gives you the tools to speak knowledgeably and with authority in those spaces. And I can say from my own personal experience, when you walk in a room and you can talk about all the things that are in this course with some knowledge, it really changes people's receptiveness to that other thing you have to say, this whole content thing that they don't maybe understand. They're more open to hearing it. So I'm super stoked about this course. I can't wait to see what it can do really honestly for the content community to really elevate this to that next level. It's much needed, it's overdue, it's time for this, and I'm really excited.
Well, super stoked to have you on board, Andrew. You've been such a champion for content designers at this point in time. So thank you all for the kind words and for being involved. Um, I want to just close on this point. There's so much happening and it's very confusing to think about right now with all of the various tools that are coming out. I don't know if everyone has been, you know, dabbling in things like Cursor and Framer, and there's all sorts of different models coming out. There's, Claude and GPT and Gemini, and it feels like every week there's some sort of bootstrapped AI tool that just got 5 million in funding from some random venture capitalist in San Francisco. And so it can be very, very difficult to feel as though you're sort of being left behind. I just want to reiterate that the way you are going to succeed in this moment is not by becoming an expert at using some of these tools. Tools are great. What's going to matter most is changing your mindset and your thinking. So that's what I hope that this course does for you. Does anyone have any questions? If you have questions about the course or the curriculum, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I know we had someone asked, Atina O'Shea, Andrew Stein, etc., going to be instructors. We haven't finalized instructors for the course yet. So we'll be able to confirm that closer to launch. We believe launch will be the first week of July. So we still have a couple of months of getting things ready and getting it prepared and doing all the needful, to use a corporate phrase. But yeah, we haven't finalized the instructor list, but once we have, we'll let everyone know. Um, Kevin, yeah, you've been rebuilding your portfolio site with Lovable. Lovable is very cool. Would definitely recommend everyone check that out. Um, any questions about the curriculum or anything? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Pete asks, I'm wondering if there are any aspects of data science covered in the course. Perhaps not the focus, but I feel becoming increasingly part of my role. Interesting. We do touch on the treatment of data and interpreting findings and so on in the strategic content measurement unit. We don't necessarily focus on traditional data science in terms of analytics or perhaps what you might consider that type of data science. But that's an interesting point. Maybe something for us to consider. We haven't yet come across too many people who are focusing on that in as part of their role, but definitely worth considering. So thank you for bringing that up. Maybe that's something we should be including. I'd be interested to hear, Pete. Actually, feel free to reach out to me, Patrick at uxcontent.com, about how that's happening in your role. I'd actually be really interested to hear about that and the different use cases you're working on there. That would be really cool to hear. Any other questions? I should say as well, if you do close up the webinar and you do have a question and you feel like you need to answer, please reach out to me, Patrick at uxcontent.com. I'll be able to answer anything for you. And so while there are still a couple of months left until this course launches, I do want to just let everyone know. I got a question here from Lance. A former web developer and UX designer transitioning into UX writing and content design. Do you foresee anything that addresses content design and strategy as a cross-disciplinary field that includes design and code? Yes, this course. So this course is exactly, I think, what you're looking for. So that first unit, that technical foundations unit, that's really looking at technical foundations from a content perspective. So we specifically start talking about how does content flow through the back end? How does it flow through the front end? What technologies do you need to understand in order to make sure that you have impact? So, for instance, talking about the difference between hard coding UI strings versus using them in flexible formats, right? Giving you the opportunity to think about how you actually create some content architecture for a product that increases your influence, that increases the flexibility of the product. So, yes, the course does include, in fact, starts with that. And hopefully gives you a solid foundation on which to build the rest of the learnings. So hopefully that answers your question, Lance. Eugene, the time frame, we're looking to launch the first week of July. So we've got a couple of months before the launch. So we're just letting everyone know that it's coming now. So if you have the opportunity to get some training budget in line and get that planned out, I know that can be difficult for some folks, so we want to give people the lead up. If you do have any questions as well after this, please feel free to email me, patrick@uxcontent.com. I'm happy to answer anything about the course. We'll be sending out more info, and we'll be sending out, the full curriculum, and we'll be putting out a page and so on. So you'll be able to sign up and get announcements. But I also just want to let people know, as a thank you for attending what is essentially a sales pitch today, I do want to give you a little gift, which is to say that if you attended today, you will get 25% off the course. So we will send that out to you, and you will have the ability to apply that to the course when it launches. So thank you very much for attending today. Really excited. Dave, no, not you. Dave, the discount does not apply to you. And Kevin, to your point, don't think there's anything that talks about these topics in an easy to access way. That's why we're creating this course, right? There are technical courses, there are product management courses, there are systems thinking courses. Nothing in the nothing on the market right now addresses these things from a content perspective and what matters to content design. So we're bringing all that together, we're shaping it through our own lens, and hopefully it will help you. All right. Well, thank you everyone very much for attending. Dave, Kyra, Shannon, and Andrew, thank you for being involved, and thank you for attending today. Really appreciate you jumping on. Once again, if anyone has any questions, please reach out, patrick@uxcontent.com. Really excited to keep going, and yeah, we'll let you know. We will let you know what's happening in the lead up, and yeah, we'll speak to you soon. You'll hear from us very, very shortly. Thank you once again, and hopefully we'll see you all around soon. All right, everyone. Thank you. Bye.